All right, next one up. Sansui G7500. Manufactured between 1978 and 1980. Direct coupled, 90 watts per channel. I'm going to have to check that. I think it's 90 watts per channel. So for some reason, I'm thinking 70 watts per channel. But I may have a typo in my notes here. So let's go with whatever I flash up is the wattage per channel. Series information, Sansui at this particular point in time, they were selling the, excuse me, while I move something out of the way, the 1000 series and the, how can I best say this? They had the 1000 series, so like the 2000, 3000, 5000, 6000, 7000, 8000, 9000. They also had the 500 series, so you had like 7500, 5500. I'm not sure how many other variations. I don't know if there was an 8500 or a 9500. Now, there were actually, so taking a step back, it gets a little muddy with what they were actually selling at any particular point in time. The product catalogs and brochures that I pulled from 77, 78, 79, and 80, the receivers that they were selling were all over the place. They basically had a couple of different tiers. They had the unicorn tier, the G20 and 33,000. Barely anybody had those, right? So while those are technically top of the line, they're unicorns. So the top of the line tier for the series, for the normal consumer, right? That would have been the 9,000, 8,000 if they had 500 variations, so 9,500, 8,500. And then I would also put the 9090 and 9090 dB in there because they were selling those at the same time. Focusing on the G-Series though, the 9,000 and the 8,000, I lump those together because their build, right, their design is very similar. They have connectors on the sides. So you connect your speakers on the sides, right, and then you have your inputs on the other side. The 7,000, the 7,500, the 5,000, 5,500, 6,000, if there was a 6,500, those were kind of in the mid-tier. So you had the consumer top tier, 9090s, G9000s, G8000s, their 500 variations if they existed. The mid-tier went from the 7,500 to the 5,000. And again, all of these are very similarly built and designed. And then you have the entry level, 2,000s and 3,000s. I don't know if they made 2,500s and 3,500s. Because the catalogs are all over the place. In one catalog, there will be an 8,000 and a 7,500 listed. The next catalog will have the 8,000 and the 7,000 listed. So I don't know what they were selling when. It gets really, really kind of convoluted. I don't know if that's on FM or not. I don't think it is. I was just curious to see if it'll pull down a station in my basement. Because I just had a 5500 down here, and it was actually pulling in a radio station. No, I take that back. It was a Yamaha CR1020. I just did a review on it, and it had no problem pulling a station in my basement, which is pretty impressive. So the aesthetics, Sansui G-Series, screams late 70s, early 80s. Sounds like a Sansui. Operation hookups are easy. Functions can be a little difficult. You have power on and off. Speaker A and B, so you can run A or B or A and B. Subsonic filter, high filter. Audio muting, loudness, FM muting, stereo and mono mode. Tape monitor 1 and 2, 4-channel adapter, mic level, Dolby FM de-emphasis. I'll flash up what that is. I really don't know or care what that is, to be honest with you. Then you have your function switch or selector switch, and this thing is crooked. When I cleaned it, I did not align it. There we go. You have AM, FM auto, phono 1, 2, and auxiliary. Tuning dial, balance, volume, treble, tone control, and bass. So laid out thoughtfully. The only place where you can get it can get a little confusing, and you know, I said this about the 5500. Maybe this isn't as confusing as I am thinking it is. I guess just this Dolby FM de-emphasis. The 4-channel adapter is for quad, so I guess it's not really all that confusing. I think it's more intuitive than I was giving it credit for. Now, overall build quality of this, I am not impressed with the G-Series Sansuis. Cabinets are cheap and flimsy, right? The cabinet veneer doesn't even look like it's even attempting to be wood. It looks like plastic. It feels like plastic. They're not very durable. I have found more of them damaged, so I don't know that they're very reliable, in terms of like long-term use. They'll start to peel and they crack and they break, and when you pull that cabinet off, there's no, I don't know, I just don't trust it. It's just flimsy. It's flimsy, and it feels like it's going to be very easy to damage. And I've come across a couple of G-Series receivers where they actually did have damage to the cabinets. Serviceability on this, intermediate. I don't know of any known issues that you have to immediately address. The common issues that I saw when I was researching the 5500 and the 7500 were protection issues, some cracked solder joints. So I don't know that any of those issues are unique only to the Sansui G-Series. I didn't see enough information to lead me to believe that these have either problem components, or there's a design flaw, or there's excessive heat or anything like that. It was just kind of the common things, right? Bad or cracked solder joints are common on any piece of equipment that's 50 years old or 40 years old. Failing capacitors that are just drifting out of spec, right? All of those things are common. As far as I know, these aren't full of bad transistors or any ICs that tend to flake out. So I don't know of any known common issues on these beyond the normal, just aging components. If you were to consider picking one of these up, what would I look for? Number one, completeness, right? Especially the condition of that crappy cabinet. The glass, make sure the glass is good. If this glass is cracked, this glass is beveled, I don't know how hard it would be to either get a replacement faceplate or a piece of glass put in there. So you want to make sure that the glass is intact. Anything with meters, I like to either see an image with meters moving. I think that's a plus, to make sure you don't have a bad meter, that everything lights up, that the full dial display is lit up properly. For some reason on the G-Series, I've come across a couple of G-Series in the past few years where either the tuning or the volume cap was missing. Those can be hard to track down and find replacements for that, someone doesn't want to charge you a crazy amount for. So you want to make sure that all of those are there. I don't know how, well, I do know how difficult it can be to find a tuning dial, because I had to look for one on one of these at one point in time. I could find a volume, but the volume has a little notch here, right? And the tuning dial doesn't. I think I had to wait like 3 or 4 months to find one that wasn't a crazy price, or for the seller to drop the price to something a little bit more realistic. So completeness, the function of the meter lamps, and then any service history. And again, you want clearly defined service history. What does that mean? I turned it on and wiped it off and then it's good to go? Or did they go in and clean pots? Did they go in and set DC offset and bias? Did they do any testing, right? Anything like that. So you want to make sure you have a clearly defined idea of what service means, because people tend to think that just putting service in the listing makes it instantly worth hundreds of extra dollars, when it may be somebody who has no idea what they're doing and they may have gone in and frankly screwed something up. So definitely look for completeness, service history, functionality, those types of things. Pricing on this, not a lot of data points, going by my memory here, and just a very few sales on eBay as of the day that I edited, or the day that I shot the video. The day that I edit the video, if there are more sales, I will include that information here. But as of today, what I found was that if you were to look for one of these recapped, restored, pristine condition, and this is not one of those, right? It has not been recapped and restored. It's been serviced. I've gone through it. It's all dialed in. Everything's working fine. It's been clean. you know, $1,300 or more, and I found a couple of Orbest offers and some that were listed out there, and it didn't seem to me that the prices were that crazy. Considering the fact that if you were to purchase a G8000, those are around $2,000. So I think a fair price on a 7500 that's been serviced, it's clean, recapped, museum piece in the box, I could see that going for as much as $1,500, with probably the typical average price being in that $1,300 range. Well north of $1,000 at a minimum, more than $1,000 at a minimum. One that's in good using, you know, like user condition, one that's working and you can just plug it in and listen to it. Maybe like this one, it's, you know, the cabinet's a little rough, and actually the cabinet is more dirty than anything else, but it's not perfect. This is not in perfect condition. You know, you're looking at more around that $750 range or mark, you know, but I could see that easily going up as high as $900 or as low as $600 or $700, right? With only like 2 sales, it's kind of hard to, and I'm going by memory and what we've priced these at, you know, in the past. So I think $750 is kind of a good, right in the middle price, right? Median price if you look between the sale ranges that I found. Pick one of these up for parts or to repair. I would have a hard time spending more than about $400. I would try to stay $300-ish. You know, maybe $500 if it's in really good shape, but it depends on what the issue is. I don't know that one of these would be super difficult to sort out, but I have no knowledge of that being true. I have worked on some 700 series, so like a 5700, 6700, and those can be challenging to work on. So I'm guessing this is not going to be as easy to work on as like a Sansui 5000, right? Cap coupled from the late 60s, early 70s. But I don't know that it's going to be as complex as a 7700 series with the LED digital display and all of that stuff. So again, I'm thinking, you know, if I were looking for one of these to pick up, to work on and then resell, I would be hard pressed to spend more than $400 on one. And that would be $400 complete with all the knobs at a minimum, and no damaged glass, and the cabinet hopefully is in decent condition, which is kind of hard to find with these. Even the 5500 I just reviewed and worked on, these cabinets they're just trash. They're just junk. They're just junk. So there you have the Sansui G7500. Not a whole lot to say. I just did a little bit of a deeper dive on the 5500. But this one, they came in together. I also had an 8000 that I worked on the other day. So it's been Sansui season here. I've got a Marantz 2275 I'm just starting to work on now, and there's gonna be a lengthy service video on that because it's in really bad shape. But anyway, that should wrap it up for the Sansui G7500 stereo receiver review. As always, if you like what you see, hit subscribe. Throw some comments in the comment section if you want to see something. I'm always on the lookout for ideas. But it's crazy how things just cross my bench, and it's always something new. So as long as I continue to get new things, I'm going to continue to review every item that I service or repair, as long as it's a unique item. So anyway, catch you in the next video.